The Lost Scrolls Ep.10, Exodus, Plagues, Passover, and the Sea of Deliverance. Oppression. The sun bled across the Nile, casting a sickly gold upon the black pylons that stabbed the sky like stone needles. But below, in the clay pits of Goshen, there was no gold, only the lash and the grit of sand in every breath. A people, numerous as dust, broke their backs to build a kingdom not their own, their groans rising with the evening haze. It was a cry that, failing to reach the ears of Pharaoh in his alabaster palace, ascended into the silent heavens. For generations, the only answer was the indifferent, burning sun, and the land itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. The call. Far from the Nile, beyond the sand-swallowed lands, a shepherd named Moses saw a fire that did not consume. A thorn bush, ablaze but not burning, flickered on the rock face. From its heart, a voice that was at once ancient and new called his name. I have seen the misery of my people. Moses, a man of two worlds, a prince and a fugitive, hid his face. The voice commanded, "Go. Tell Pharaoh to let my people go." The staff in his hand, a cold piece of wood, became a serpent, alive and terrible. The God of his fathers had remembered his promise, and the mountain of God trembled in holy fire. The confrontation. In the throne room of Egypt, where granite gods stared with unblinking eyes, Moses stood before the living God, Pharaoh. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go." Pharaoh, draped in linen and gold, gave a dry, rustling laugh. "Who is the Lord that I should obey him?" His court magicians, armed with their dark arts, mimicked the sign of the serpent, but the serpent born of God's fire consumed theirs. Still, Pharaoh's heart was a stone not easily moved, and the first shadow fell across the throne of Egypt. The river of blood. The first blow fell upon the river, the lifeblood of the empire. As the staff of God touched it, the sacred Nile writhed and thickened into blood. The fish died, the water stank, and a crimson tide lapped at the foundations of the temples. The people dug in the sand for water, but found only the same foul red. For 7 days, the heart of Egypt pumped poison through its veins, a horrific mirror of the slave blood that had nourished it for so long. And the river of life became the river of death. The unrelenting land. The second plague crawled up from the bloodied waters. A tide of frogs, slimy and croaking, inundated the land. They were in the palaces and the huts, in the ovens and the kneading bowls. No corner was safe from their damp, bulging presence. Pharaoh, tormented, begged for relief, promising to let the people go. But when the frogs died in stinking heaps and the land had rest, his promise dissolved like the morning mist. His heart hardened once more, and the promise of a king proved as slippery as the creatures he despised. The dust of judgment. Then the very dust rose up against them. Aaron struck the ground, and a living cloud of gnats, tiny and biting, tormented man and beast. It was a plague the magicians, with their failing incantations, could not produce. "This is the finger of God," they whispered, their confidence shattered, their skin swelling from the relentless bites. But Pharaoh would not listen. His pride was a wall against the truth, a fortress built of stubbornness and power. And the smallest of creatures brought the greatest of empires to its knees. A line in the sand, a swarm of flies, thick and buzzing, became the next plague, but this time, a line was drawn. The swarms descended on the houses of the Egyptians, a crawling, deafening torment. But in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel lived, there were no flies. A distinction was made, a visible sign that God knew his people. Yet even this miracle, a clear division between the cursed and the protected, was not enough to pierce the armor of Pharaoh's will, and a divine wall was built between the oppressed and the oppressor. The breath of pestilence. The judgment moved from the people to the beasts who served them. A pestilence, swift and deadly, swept through the fields of Egypt. The horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks, the wealth of the nation, fell where they stood. The fields became graveyards. But in Goshen, not one animal of the Israelites was touched. The wealth of the slaves was preserved, while the foundation of the empire crumbled. Pharaoh saw it, he knew it, but he would not yield. And the silence of the fields screamed a warning he refused to hear. The sky of fiery tears, the sky, once a brilliant canvas of blue, turned against them. A storm of hail and fire, a thing of terrible beauty, shattered the heavens. It fell upon the fields of Egypt, breaking every tree and flattening the flax and the barley. It battered the stone of the pyramids and the mud of the huts, a judgment that did not distinguish between rich and poor, except in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were spared. Still, Pharaoh's pride was a fortress against reason, and the very heavens made war on the land of the stubborn. The devouring wind. Then came the locusts, a living carpet that devoured what the hail had left, a scouring wind that turned the world barren and gray. They blotted out the sun, their chewing a deafening roar that filled the silence left by the storm. Every green thing, every leaf, every blade of grass was consumed. The land, once a jewel of green and gold, was now a uniform brown of despair. "Forgive my sin only this once," Pharaoh begged, but his repentance was as fleeting as the last wind that swept the locusts away. And the world was unmade, returned to a colorless void. The tangible darkness, and after the noise came the silence. A tangible darkness, thick and suffocating, descended upon all of Egypt. For 3 days, no one could see his brother. No one could rise from his place. It was the darkness of the tomb, a primal emptiness. It was a weight on the chest, a cold that seeped into the bones. The sun, the great god Ra, was blotted from the sky, his power broken. But in the homes of the Israelites, there was light, and the greatest god of Egypt was proven to be nothing. The final warning. Moses was brought before Pharaoh, who sat wreathed in shadows. "Go," the king snarled, "but leave your flocks and herds behind." Moses' reply was absolute. Not a hoof shall be left behind. Enraged, Pharaoh pronounced his own sentence. "Get away from me, for on the day you see my face again, you will die." And Moses replied, "You have spoken well. I will not see your face again." He delivered one last, terrible warning of a judgment to come, a cry that would echo from every Egyptian house. And the final thread of mercy was stretched to its breaking point. The Passover. One last warning. One last plague. A night of terror and obedience. In the lamplit silence of Goshen, families gathered. A lamb, without blemish, was prepared. Its blood, a dark crimson, was painted on the doorposts, a sign of faith in a promise of mercy. They ate in haste, their cloaks tucked in, and their staffs in hand, listening for the great cry that was about to rise from every Egyptian home, the cry of mourning for the firstborn, taken by the silent judgment of God. And the angel of death passed over the houses, marked by blood. The great cry. At midnight, the silence broke. A cry tore through the darkness of Egypt, a sound of ultimate anguish that rose from every home, from the palace of Pharaoh to the dungeon of the captive. The firstborn of Egypt, the pride and future of the nation, was gone. There was not a house where there was not one dead. The living god, Pharaoh, was brought low, his own heir lying still before him. The power of Egypt was broken not by an army, but by a silent, unstoppable breath, and the pride of a nation was shattered by the grief of a nation. The Exodus. Before the dawn, the decree came, "Go." A broken Pharaoh, his voice choked with grief, urged them out. A nation, born in a single night, began to move. They did not go empty-handed. The Egyptians, in their terror, pressed silver and gold into their hands, desperate for them to leave. A column of families and livestock and fragile hopes shuffling in the moonlight, their footsteps muffled by the sand. They were leaving the house of slavery forever, and the desert opened its arms to receive the children of the promise. The pursuit, but a heart so long hardened, does not soften overnight. Grief turned to rage in Pharaoh's soul. "They are trapped," he snarled, "hemmed in by the wilderness and the sea." The thunder of 600 chariots shook the earth as the elite warriors of Egypt gave chase. The dust of their pursuit was a storm cloud on the horizon. Fear seized the people. "Were there not enough graves in Egypt?" they cried to Moses. They were caught between the iron legions of Pharaoh and the impassable deep, and the memory of the whip was stronger than the hope of freedom. Trapped. The pillar of cloud that led them by day and became a pillar of fire by night moved behind Israel to stand between the people and their pursuers. It cast a blinding light toward the Egyptians, confounding them, while it gave light to the Hebrews. The people stood at the water's edge, the roar of the sea before them and the thunder of chariots behind them. Their hope faltered. It was a dead end, a final, cruel joke of fate. "Stand still," Moses commanded, his voice ringing with a conviction few could feel, "and see the salvation of the Lord." And in the place of greatest despair, the stage was set for the greatest miracle. The sea. Moses stood at the water's edge. He raised his staff not in defiance, but in faith. A great wind began to howl from the east, a wind that tore at the surface of the water, driving it back, piling it up. All through the night the wind blew, carving a path through the heart of the sea. The waters rose up like living, glowing, churning walls, a canyon of impossible deliverance. The seabed was dry, an escape route where none had existed moments before, and the laws of nature were suspended by the will of God. The crossing. They walked on dry ground, between the liquid mirrors of the sea. The pillar of fire lit their way, the sound of the churning water a constant, terrifying roar beside them. They walked, a nation of slaves, through the very heart of the impossible, their fear giving way to a dawning, overwhelming awe. As the last Israelite foot touched the far shore, the dawn began to break. The Egyptian army, blinded by their rage, charged into the path. And the path to freedom became the path to judgment. The song of the sea. Moses lowered his staff. The wind ceased. The walls of water, held back by a miracle, collapsed. With the roar of a dying beast, the sea crashed down upon the chariots and the horsemen. The army of Egypt was drowned. As the sun rose over the shore, the people of Israel looked back upon a sea littered with the wreckage of their oppressors. They were free. Miriam the prophetess took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her. "Sing to the Lord," she cried, "for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea." The cry of a slave, once lost on the desert wind, had become a song of deliverance that would echo through the ages.